Well, so much for that, I guess. You wouldn't believe it, but this was also a 3-hour conversation that was had in a Discord call. Only this time, there was a fair amount of discourse, reevaluation, redacting, and retracting. I think those two words might mean the same thing. But most importantly, there was a redefining of the concept that I'm here to talk about, which is huge for me, especially since I've been in the anti-friendzone camp for as long as I could reasonably understand what the friendzone even was. Am I making this video out of spite? Yeah, a little bit, but not for the reasons you'd think. I made the bold claim once that the friendzone does not exist, and if you think it does, you're ignorant. To which I was immediately dismissed and told no, it definitely does, and in the least confrontational way possible, I asked for clarification. I was given nothing. A day or two passed by and I asked the question again, thinking maybe I hadn't been heard the first time around, and once again, I was told the friendzone definitely does exist, so I asked again for literally any kind of elaboration, and as you might have guessed, I was given nothing, once again. As I continued to revise this script, record over and over and over again, and eventually get this posted, I'll ask a few more times to determine if this kind of video even needs to be made. Editing DJ Cereal Sauce here, and yeah, the video has to be made. I never got any response from him, so. Or maybe the conversation will at least help me understand how I can better change this video to sway the minds of at least one person who believes the friendzone to be a real thing. So let's go. All right. Bring up the graphic again, because if I don't talk about this, how am I ever going to convince anyone? In popular culture, the friendzone is a conceptual place describing a situation in which one person in a mutual friendship wishes to enter into a romantic or sexual relationship with the other person, while the other does not. Now, you might be wondering how I can read that and, in full confidence, still sit here and tell you that the friendzone does not exist. Correct! I mean, hell, most people who have ever attempted to get into a relationship have probably had this exact situation happen before. Me personally, I've had this situation happen to me, 4 times, if my memory serves me right. So it seems silly that I've had this happen to me 4 times. I've had 4 different women tell me that they would rather just be friends with me, and here I am telling you that that exact situation is not real? Correct. Yes, but again, not in the way that you'd think. Shouts out to this guy for asking me one singular question that led me to have to rephrase the entire reasoning behind my decision. And from this point on, if you think you might be offended by what I'm about to say, I suggest you click off or at least tread a little bit lightly. Now, at the beginning of this 3-hour conversation, my main reasoning for the friendzone not existing was the simple fact that no one owes you a relationship just because you want to have one, and trying to force one onto someone makes you a creep. The exact way that I phrased it was, quote, I argue the friendzone does not exist because there is always, and I mean always, a negative connotation with being in the friendzone. Imagine how dumb you sound to say, yeah, this girl who I like only wants to be friends. Like, what? That's great. Now you have a new friend. You're lucky she didn't just recoil in disgust and not want to associate with you. I still believe the sentiment, but that no longer is my justified reasoning. I don't believe that just because something has a negative connotation to it, that automatically means it's not real. Shouts out again. When you consider the fact that there are a near infinite number of reasons someone may want to just stay friends with you, focusing on school, traveling far from their hometown, being in a relationship already, not interested in your gender, not looking for a relationship, not wanting you specifically, it really puts into light how entitled you have to be to think that this is a personal attack in any way against you. Simply put, people want what they want in a committed relationship, and if someone or something does not fit that, then why on earth would they pick that person? I mean, like, I don't want to insult these kinds of people too hard because I feel like that's the majority of what I do around here, but you had to have been one spoiled motherfucker to think that you are the only one who gets the freedom to pick and choose here. Good job, me. Only dedicated 1 paragraph to the thing not used to justify my answer. Maybe it's time you get to talking about your actual reasoning. In simple terms, I do actually believe that the friendzone exists in theory and in practice. Then what the fuck was the point of this video? But only for those with, how do I put it, not so solid a grasp on healthy relationship dynamics? I believe that the friendzone only exists for a similar demographic of people who believe that blue balls is a real thing in social contexts, which is to say, only used by men, and maybe women, is there a female equivalent of blue balls? By men to pressure women into giving into their desires without concern for the woman in question. I believe that the friendzone comes from a place fueled by pickup artist culture, which is also referenced in the Wikipedia article, where men see relationships as a kind of game to play and win, rather than some kind of complex human interaction that you can't just find a cheat code for. Another part to play in this issue is the entirety of the nice guy syndrome, harkening back to the whole entitlement thing. And all in all, this whole problem is posed almost entirely by groups of people and individuals who don't have a healthy understanding of how relationships are supposed to function. Turns out that is actually most people. It's just become so widespread due to the extreme nature of it that it's seeped into modern terminology and people use it to describe what it is. Or do they? In comes my second line of thought on this whole thing. I believe in the oxymoronic idea that because we had to coin a term for this situation, it both bolsters and hinders arguments towards its existence. Sure, the actualization of the term, even to the point of an entire Wikipedia article being created for it, almost certainly proves that it has to exist, but at the same time, why did we have to create a new term for it if describing the situation actually gives a better idea of what happened and gives a better idea of what the friend zone is trying to describe? Why did we have to create a new term stemming from these unhealthy communities when the general public spends a good deal of time making fun of them for thinking like this? Something tells me the incels have more power over us if they single-handedly got us to use their twisted term when Marianne from the 8th grade rejected their advances. Hell, no, I wouldn't even say rejected their advances, simply just turned them down and said, no, I don't know you like that, or I don't see you in a relationship-y kind of way. Another point that has to be made stems from a very real thing that some people have witnessed or experienced. I'm sure we've all seen the trope of the popular girl hanging on to a friendship they have or keeping someone at arm's reach in order to retain the benefits that may come with being friends with this person. One such friend of mine described them as a derivative of being in the friend zone. I will not deny the fact that there are women and men and they-thems who do this kind of thing, partially because they are shitty people, stringing someone along and giving them a false sense of hope that you may actually be their friend when you in fact don't see them that way, but you keep up the facade of seeing them that way, but also partially because some people don't need to be that close to you. In my mind, this situation is not being put in the friend zone. What this situation is being exploited by somebody else, at least if we're looking at it from an outsider's perspective. I understand that the majority of the friend zone mentality comes from the perspective of the person being put there, which is why the term was coined in the first place, especially since the victims are the most vocal about it, but there is no denying that this is not it. Not at all. The last thing that I think needs to be talked about here is the difference between being someone's friend because you want it to be versus being someone's friend because that's what you had to be. Short and simple, if you're only friends with someone because you had to be, I'm willing to bet that you probably never actually saw that person as a friend in the first place. My reasoning for this? Well, if you wanted to be their friend, then you wouldn't mind if they said that they would rather be friends. It's not that hard. Consider the following. If you think you're friends with someone just because you had to be, or because that's what they want you to be and that's not what you want to be, might I suggest you stop associating with them because clearly you only see them as some kind of thing or object to be conquered, and that's not cool. Okay. That was a lot of information, so I'm going to try and break it down to a few of the key components here. 1. Despite a definition existing, I don't think it applies to any sane and healthy human who genuinely appreciates having friendships with people. 2. The concept of the friend zone is basically only used by people who already struggle with the concept of relationships involuntarily because they are probably misogynists. 3. The term should not exist because anybody who cares to tell the whole story accurately will just tell the whole story accurately. And 4. From an objective standpoint, somebody keeping someone else at arm's reach to maintain some sort of benefit is not a friend zone issue, they are being taken advantage of. The term friend zone is never used to describe the reality of the situation. It's used as a label for yourself so that you can play the victim. It allows you to feel bad about your situation and then make us try and feel bad about your situation when you forced it upon yourself. You cannot make us feel pity for you. It's all summed up in this final quote. I also tend to look at the term friend zone like this. The people who unironically use it when they get told that they would rather just be friends with X-girl, they see it as another tag so that they can play the victim. If you were a normal fucking person, you would just say, they just wanted to be friends, rather than trying to label yourself and your situation. There's not really an appropriate place for me to put this, but I was looking at some of my old videos before I started editing this one, and I realized that I was talking about the audio upgrades to be expected from this channel in the technological video, and now here I am delivering on exactly that. I guess technically if you had watched that video and then seen the one that came out before this, you'd probably already know that, but I can at least acknowledge that it happened, and that makes me happy, even if nobody actually cares. So, good night, or good morning, or whatever time you're listening to this. Goodbye.